A few months ago, I made a video covering a Persona 5 Iceberg made by Glad Kumura Got Shot. Fast forward to a few days ago, and I see that they commented on my previous video that they made an updated Iceberg with new info on it that included topics relating to more recent Persona 5 releases. I decided that I'd cover the new Iceberg and also include what I spoke about in my previous Iceberg video to compile everything into the definitive video on the Persona 5 Iceberg. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into this. The tip. Persona symbolism. Each Phantom Thieves persona is based off of a fictional, mythological, or historical figure. For example, Arsène is inspired by Arsène Lupin, the Gentleman Thief, created by French author Maurice Leblanc in 1905. I suggest you go and research the origin of each persona yourself, as it's pretty interesting and may help you see your favourite characters in a different light. Royal differences. This is simply in reference to how there's some changes in the story of Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, which includes significant retcons like how they changed the ending to accommodate the new characters and to set up Persona 5 strikers. Akeshi is alive in the true ending. In the final scene of Persona 5 Royal, we see a figure who looks strikingly similar to Akeshi pass by Joker's window. Ultimately, this could just be Atlas playing with us, but I do remember watching a video of an unused event where Akeshi survived and went to a rehab center, but the video has been privated and I can't find any more like it. Beta models. The beta models of each character can be found and viewed in the game's data files. There's not much more to this one. Persona 4 Leftovers. The texture files used for the guards that beat the volleyball players in Kamoshida's palace has leftover textures from the machine enemies in Persona 4. There's no good reason for them to be there, and it also doesn't really mean anything important either. Delicious Pancakes. Delicious Pancakes is a recurring joke in the Persona fandom over how Akeshi's downfall was caused by him saying he overheard someone mentioning pancakes, when in fact only Morgana had said the word pancakes. Since only people who have entered the metaverse can hear Morgana, this led to the Phantom Thieves catching him in his lies later on in the game.
Oh, am I mistaken? I thought I heard something about delicious pancakes.
Akeshi is a wild card. In Persona 5, Joker is capable of wielding multiple personas, because he has been granted the power of the wildcard. Akeshi is also seen to wield multiple personas as he uses the persona Robin Hood as his disguise, and his true persona, Loki. This means that Akeshi was also granted the power of the wildcard, but, due to his lack of bonds, he was unable to use the wildcard potential to the same extent as Joker. Long story short, Akeshi has no friends. Persona 5 stage play. Believe it or not, there was a theatre adaptation of Persona 5 that covered the game's events up to the end of the first palace. The show ran for a limited time in Japan during 2019 and 2020. You can go find it online if you want, and I'm also pretty sure there's a part 2 already on the way, so you can get really excited over that. For his neutral special, he wields a gun. During the Smash Ultimate presentation for Joker, the game's creator Masahiro Sakurai said the line, "For his neutral special, he wields a gun." Many people watching found this pretty funny since Sakurai says it in such a casual way, and it's ended up becoming a long-running meme in the Smash and Persona community. Mementos Mission Manga. The Mementos Mission Manga is a spin-off story that covers the Phantom Thieves' exploration of Mementos and how they take down smaller-scale criminals other than the palace rulers. By the way, if anyone watching this has read that manga, can you leave a comment telling me if it's any good? Thanks. Background Thieves. I'm not too sure exactly what this means, but my guess is that it's talking about the fact that each Phantom Thief sometimes pops up in a loading screen cameo in Persona 5 Royal. Joker's glasses. In Persona 5 Royal, we find out from Morgana that Joker doesn't actually need glasses, and has them purely for aesthetic purposes. You can see Morgana say this if you examine the glasses shop in Kichijoji. Thieves' Den graffiti. In the Thieves' Den, you can find a piece of graffiti that depicts 6 stars arranged in a circle. Some say it could be a hint to a concept for Persona 6 that may involve stars, and others say that it could simply be a small tribute to the 6 Persona protagonists. What's interesting is that splatters of paint beneath the graffiti lead to the trophy you get for beating Josei in the Tycoon Room. So, if the stars do have something to do with Persona 6, maybe Josei will play a larger role in that game. Morgana gets yeeted. In the dub of Persona 5 the animation, Ryuji throws Morgana, and as he does that, he says yeet.
Come on, cat, we gotta go!
It's just a bit upsetting. Harem Valentines. If you romance every possible character in Persona 5, you've taken what's known as the harem route. Unlike Persona 4, where if you take the harem route, Narukami just pulls all the girls in a day, Joker is a little less fortunate. Persona 5's Harem Valentines has all the girls show up at once to give Joker chocolate, and once they figure out what's going on, they just beat the shit out of him. Yeah, I don't know what this means. Let's move on. Fighting the Reaper during flu season. If you go into Mementos during the flu season, some shadows may fall into despair and kill themselves after 3 turns. This also applies to the Reaper, a rare enemy that rewards a lot of XP if you kill them. Players often fight the Reaper during flu season just to get an easy XP boost. Joker's canon name. Joker's canon name is Ren Amamiya. We know this because this is how he is referred to in the Persona 5 dancing game, which is an official Atlus product. However, there is a long-running debate amongst fans over his name, as the Persona 5 manga refers to him as Akira Kurusu. The manga is not made by Atlus, meaning Ren is the only official name Atlus has given Joker. But honestly, just call him what you want, it doesn't matter too much anyway, I just call him Joker, who cares? Phantom Thief Hifumi. In the Persona 5 art book, it stated that a character with Hifumi's design was planned to be added to the Phantom Thieves alongside Makoto as a more radical strategist. However, the devs chose to integrate this idea into Makoto and used Hifumi's sketch for another confidant character. I see this as a huge loss cause when it comes to Makoto, I fall asleep. She was good in Strikers though, so please don't kill me. The Shallows. Akechi's Palace. This one is about some strings of code found in the Persona 5 game data that hints towards Akechi's Palace being on the table at one point during the game's development. The game data contains text saying Master Akechi or Lord Akechi depending on the translation, which is what other shadows would call previous palace rulers. Now, this can be taken as Akechi having a palace, or it could just relate to an unused idea of Shadow Akechi in Shido's palace commanding other shadows. I'd say that option is more likely considering the fact that Persona users just can't have palaces.
Now that's comedy.
In my first Iceberg video, I wasn't sure whether or not this voice clip was an unused line. I'd heard some reports that it's unused and others told me it was used when leveling up the DLC persona Asterius Picaro. Thankfully, I've received a comment on the old Iceberg video telling me that the laughing part of the line was used in the DLC and the now that's comedy part was removed. I'm glad to finally have this one confirmed, to be honest. Doubt and Arcana Break leftovers. Persona 5's game data shows that Doubt and Arcana breaks were planned to be in the game at one point. In previous games, if you neglected to meet up with the social link, they may begin to doubt you, causing the link to reverse or the Arcana to break altogether. The data shows that this was planned to be included early on, but was scrapped at some point during the development of Persona 5. Mouse Crow. Shido's palace sees each Phantom Thief being turned into a mouse. However, what can't be explained is why there's also a fully animated Mouse Crow in the game's data, despite Akechi not being around at that part of the story. I'm not gonna complain about it, something about a lunatic serial killer being turned into a mouse is pretty funny to me. Takeover and Last Surprise should have been switched. In Persona 5 Royal, Last Surprise plays when the player's ambushed, and Takeover plays when the player ambushes the enemy. This Iceberg implies that the two songs should switch places because the lyrical context of each song applies to the opposite scenarios. I actually disagree with this, as Last Surprise was written with both scenarios in mind, and Takeover's lyrics focus more on the idea of charging into battle and catching the enemy off guard. Dress Talk. Dress Talk refers to multiple unused voice lines found by data miners that were meant for when the Phantom Thieves tried on the outfits of Persona characters from previous games. What's interesting about the lines is that they were filled with references to older games with direct mentions of schools from past titles. I suppose this is cool since it eliminates any doubt over whether or not the Persona games all take place in the same continuity. Bedroom models ripped from Persona 5 dancing. During the third semester, you have the opportunity to speak to your maxed out confidants in their bedrooms in order to trigger their third tier awakening. The bedroom environments in Royal are just ripped directly from the files of Persona 5 dancing. There's not too much more to say on that, it's just Atlus using their reserve of resources to its full potential. Persona OA. On the 15th of March 2018, an app called Persona OA was released in Japan. The app served as a calendar for upcoming Persona-related events. It also featured a mini-game in which Joker could explore Mementos and gather an in-game currency called Persona Points. These points could be used to redeem cool little gifts like downloadable wallpapers or even being entered into a lottery to win pre-registration for a Persona event. The app was live from March 2018 to August 2019. What I think is pretty cool is that Royal's data features 100 unused QR codes meant to be scanned by the app to get rewards. I have a question though. How many Persona events actually went on in Japan? There must have been a good amount considering they felt the necessity to dedicate an entire app to them. Yusuke's doujinshi. Whilst exploring Mementos, there's a throwaway line in which Yusuke mentions he was once asked to draw a doujinshi. Now, apparently this led to someone deciding to illustrate a full doujinshi series dedicated to Yusuke. Now, before researching this, I didn't know what a doujinshi was. And if you don't, look at these pictures and work it out. I am sorry, you now know. I'm not even mad about this. I'm just disappointed. World Arcana. Persona 4 features the World Arcana as the Arcana of Narukami's ultimate persona. This does feature in Persona 5, but it's nothing more than a token to symbolize the journey's end. That's all there is to that one, really. Catherine is a Persona 5 prototype. There is some truth to this, but I say prototype is too strong a word. 1 month before Persona 5 released, game director Katsuro Hishino explained that Catherine was the studio's pilot game on the PS3 in order to experiment with the new hardware. This makes sense since the PS3's architecture made it a real pain in the ass to develop for, so testing the waters with a smaller and cheaper game was probably a safe bet. So from this, I'd say certain development techniques learned whilst making Catherine were used to make Persona 5. There's no evidence suggesting Catherine was ever a prototype, and it seems that it was more of a reference point, despite what a very angry commenter would say. I'm not gonna name names, but yeah. Unused songs in Smash Ultimate. In Smash Ultimate's game files, data miners found the original versions of Aria of the Soul and Beneath the Mask. These versions don't actually feature in the game, but their Smash remixes do instead. This honestly hurt me to find out, because the original version of Aria of the Soul is way better than the Smash remix and definitely deserved to be in the game. Let me explain. You know when Sojiro teaches you about coffee and says,
"Let me explain."
Yeah, well, there's unused voice files of each Phantom Thief saying this line. There's not much to get from this info other than the idea of Morgana teaching about some random Venezuelan coffee beans. Joker in the electric chair. In the game's data, there's an unused model of Joker sitting in an electric chair. Don't really know what this was going to be used for, but it exists. The Depths. Ryuji shoes. Ryuji shoes feature an image of the rising sun symbol used by the Imperial Japanese military during World War II. However, this symbol is considered offensive in South Korea since the Japanese forced the Koreans to live under their oppression in the past. This led to the image being removed from Ryuji shoes in the opening sequence of the South Korean and Chinese release. Honestly, it's interesting to see how big of an impact something as simple as a pair of shoes can make in certain parts of the world. Akechi in Persona 5 Dancing base game. Apparently, Akeshu was actually meant to be in Persona 5 Dancing from release, but for some reason Atlus chose to relegate him to DLC. We're not sure why they chose to do this. It could be that Atlus wanted to avoid spoilers, or it could be because they wanted to squeeze some extra cash out of Persona fans. Futaba's security meter. I don't know about you, but I'm getting really tired of using the phrase in Persona 5's game data, but in Persona 5's game data, you can find a security meter icon of Futaba's shadow that was meant to display after you meet the shadow. This didn't make it into the game, as they only ever used her regular appearance on the security meter. Joker's stage play name. Remember the Persona 5 stage play I mentioned? Yeah, well, Joker actually has a different name that no one ever really acknowledges. Oh, what's the name? Mao. Nominating the twins. Nominating the twins is a trophy that's often missed by players. In order to get this trophy, the player must unlock the Strength Confidant and then perform a group guillotine execution. Ryuji says the F word. Throughout Persona 5, Ryuji censors himself saying the F word countless times throughout the game, and when he's about to say it for real, he always gets cut off before he can get it out. In Persona 5 Strikers, Ryuji gets really pissed after Emma makes Sophia feel worthless, and he snaps and finally says it. Listen to this.
So shut the fuck up, idiot!
Unfortunately, after this scene, he goes back to being censored, but we need to take these victories wherever we can get them, because they sound glorious. Sai Romance Route. Sai Nijima is one of the few female characters in Persona 5 that you can't romance. Despite this, if her confidant is maxed out, the game labels it in the same way as romanced confidants. Some unused events have been found in the game, like a White Day event for Sai, which does suggest a Sai romance route was on the table at some point. I know there's a lot of people who are upset that you can't romance Sai, and my suggestion to fix this is to go talk to a real-life woman. Missing Kawakami's social link. Some players say that they were unable to activate Kawakami's social link because they missed the event where she gets yelled at by Miss Chono. However, some players say that the event does pop up again over time, so I'm hearing mixed things in this. This might mean you can get locked out of Kawakami's confidant, but I'd like to think Atlus would make sure that you don't miss such an important link. He's a Trickster. He's a Trickster is a song in Persona 5 Royal that can only be obtained if you complete the Mementos request, an idol and a unicorn. Then you have to speak to idol star Lilina in Akihabara on the day of farewell, and she'll give you the album with the song. Once you've done this, you can purchase it as background music in the Thieves' Den. Sex Appeal Stat. The game data contains an unused concept called the sex appeal stat, which we should all be thankful did not make it into the game with a teenage cast. Loki's mouth. Akeshu's persona, Loki, never opens his mouth during the game, but the game data does include models with his mouth open. This may be as simple as Atlus choosing not to use the models, but there's also a potential link to a Norse story where Loki gets his mouth sewn shut by dwarves for using word trickery to get out of a bet. Yaldaboath. I think this refers to the game's misspelling of Yaldaboath, but I'm not entirely sure. Wake up, get out there, Jazztronik remix was unfinished. Persona 5 Dancing has a remix of Wake Up, Get Out There by Jazztronik, but I haven't been able to find any sources that say the song is unfinished. But if you listen to it, it sounds pretty unfinished. New Game Plus trophies. Some trophies can only be obtained by playing a New Game Plus save file. Okumura shut down Wild Duck Burger. Persona 5 states the Wild Duck Burger from Persona 3 is in shambles because of the success of Big Bang Burger. There's also a news report on the Tokyo subway that mentions a Wild Duck employee was fired for posting a nude selfie online. Some fans think that the employee was manipulated into posting the selfie by Okumura Foods to tank the reputation of Wild Duck Burger. If this is true, that would mean Akeshu would have been ordered to use his persona powers to persuade someone to post a nude selfie, which is just funny to think about. Aeon Arcana. Past Persona games include a character with the Aeon Arcana. Persona 5's code includes the Aeon Arcana, but is never used in the game. PS4 differences. Honestly, I'm not too sure why this is even here or why it's so far down the iceberg, but basically, the only difference between the PS3 and PS4 versions of Persona 5 is loading times, occasional frame rate drops, and poorer shadow textures. But just buy Royal anyway. Water of Rebirth. This is a consumable item that restores 5 SP. The description simply says, blended with placenta. That's pretty gross. Deep Dark. Persona Q2 uses beta Last Surprise. Persona Q2 features the beta version of Last Surprise. Moving on. Stolen Persona 4 fan art. In Persona 5, Atlus put in some imagery relating to Persona 4. Amongst these images was a piece of fan art that Atlus had included without the original creator's permission. Not much really came out of this other than a reminder to not steal art. What is Josei? Persona 5 Royal features a new character who roams around Mementos called Josei. Not Josei, Josei apparently. Josei runs a shop where you can purchase items and limited time stat boosts with the flowers scattered all over Mementos. I never really gave Josei much thought, but now that you bring it up, what is he? There's only really speculation on this answer since we have no concrete evidence, but the two popular theories are that Josei is related to Aigis somehow. I don't exactly know the reasoning behind this, but I've seen some people mention it, so I just thought I'd put it in here. The other theory is that he's another puppet who serves Philemon, similar to Igor. If we look back to the Thieves' Den graffiti, we could hope that we find out more about him in Persona 6, so for now, we just have to wait and see about Josei. Anime is New Game Plus. I think this one is self-explanatory. The Iceberg is saying that the anime follows the events of New Game Plus. I don't really know if there's anything to back this up, and I'm not gonna sit and watch through the anime, as I've heard it's complete trash, so yeah. If I had to go with my gut feeling though, I sorta doubt there's any truth to this, but feel free to tell me why I'm wrong in the comments below. I love it when you guys do that, makes me feel great. Persona 5 Dancing vocalizing lines. In Persona 5 Dancing's data, there's voice lines for each character's Japanese voice actor vocalizing each vowel in the Japanese order. It's just pretty funny to listen to and kinda strange. Royal is the finished game. There are some who believe that Persona 5 Royal is the game Atlus intended to release as Persona 5, but after delaying the game so many times they had to cut it down to satiate their customers' desires. Obviously, I can never be sure about this, but I'd say this is likely not the case. Past Persona games ended up with a definitive edition once Atlus saw Persona sales start to pick up. However, I do think Persona 5 may have been the first Persona release where a definitive edition was already planned. At this point, Atlus was more than aware of the mild attention Persona was getting, and if you look at that convenient gap in the calendar Atlus left, it does suggest an extra semester had already been at least planned. So no, I don't think Royal was what Atlus meant Persona 5 to be, but I'm very sure that they planned on making it even before Persona 5 released. They just did whatever makes them the most money. Royal was rushed. I've looked around and I've seen some people who feel that Persona 5 Royal was rushed, especially the third semester. Now, we don't know too much about Royal's development, but it's safe to say the game probably had about 2 to 3 years of concrete development, and some ideas were probably conceptualized even before that. I really don't think the game was rushed, and to be honest, the third semester was my favorite part of the game. If I'm being real about it, I think the people who think it's rushed had deluded themselves into thinking there'd be a whole game's worth of new content, or at least close to that amount. In reality, Royal is a definitive edition, not an entirely new game, and I think people should start judging it for what it was meant to be. Psychotic breakdown is a translation error. The term used in the English translation of Persona 5 for the phenomenon that causes subway drivers to crash their train was a psychotic breakdown. You heard this phrase constantly throughout the game, and because of the way it's translated, there's a decent chance you assumed a psychotic breakdown and a mental shutdown were the same thing. I know I did at least. In reality, they're very different. A mental shutdown is a lethal occurrence caused by killing a person's shadow, whereas a psychotic breakdown is when a person is made to go berserk through meddling with the metaverse. Honestly, I just found out about this error, and it clears up a lot of questions I had about the story. I couldn't really wrap my head around why the subway drivers survived, yet Okumura, Kobayakawa, and the SIU director all died. The answer is that they had completely different experiences. A more accurate translation of psychotic breakdown would be a rampage incident, since they go berserk and all that stuff. What really sucks is that this error obscures an important detail in the second Akechi boss fight. It's hard to tell because of the dub, but Akechi actually gives himself a psychotic breakdown, or a rampage incident, to force out an even higher level of power from himself to fight Joker. This detail's actually really cool, and yeah, sucks that Atlus West ruined that moment. Wakaba's Palace. Some fans believe that Wakaba Ishiki must have had a palace because she died of a mental shutdown. People think that in order for her to have a shutdown, she must have had a palace ruled by her shadow. I personally don't think this is the case, as we see the shadows of many other people lurking in Mementos, so it's more than likely her shadow was probably just killed there. Happy Harem Valentines. There's an unused event for the Harem Route Valentine's Day, where things go much more smoothly for Joker. Scramble and Royal Timeline Split. There are those in the fandom who believe that Persona 5 Strikers and Persona 5 Royal take place in split timelines. This train of thought stemmed from a Sega employee stating that Strikers is a sequel to Persona 5, not Persona 5 Royal. I can see why some would take this as Strikers continuing from the Persona 5 ending and not the Persona 5 Royal retcon, but it almost definitely just means that you don't have to play Royal to understand Strikers. Besides, the ending of Royal is written specifically to accommodate the events of Persona 5 Strikers. Yaldaboath, a Maruki timeline split. Not 100% sure on this one, but I think it's linked with the possibility that Persona 5 Strikers follows the ending of vanilla Persona 5, meaning the events surrounding Maruki in the third semester take place in a split timeline. Again, I don't think this is the case. Futaba's suicide. At one point, there was some gossip amongst fans that in Persona 5's Japanese release, Futaba commits suicide if he failed to meet her palace's deadline. This was later confirmed as untrue. The deadline sequence is just the same in Japanese. Futaba's Persona 4 Awakening. In Persona 4, characters unlock their persona by facing their shadow selves and accepting the embodiment of their negative traits as a part of themselves. If someone has the inner strength to do this, their true self will come forth in the form of their persona. This is pretty much what happened to Futaba, but in reverse. Futaba hated herself, but her shadow never stopped trying to convince her that she is a good person. Once Futaba had the strength to admit that she was wrong and that she isn't terrible, she awakens to her persona. So yeah, this is pretty much the same method we see in Persona 4, except that her shadow is pretty much the embodiment of her better side. Okumura's Palace's stressful aura. Yeah, didn't find anyone saying the environment of Okumura's palace was stressful, but I can say that I was stressed whilst playing through it because it's shit. Forbidden McDonald's. Persona 5 has a placeholder McDonald's texture that isn't exactly unused, but is placed out of view from the camera. Maybe it was just left there, but I like to think it's one of those cases of a forgotten about texture that would stop the game from working once the devs found it and tried to remove it. Maruki and Joker are related. This is to do with the theory that Maruki and Joker are somehow relatives, with some saying Joker is a child of Maruki and Rumi. This is just untrue, as we know Joker's parents live in his hometown, and they're directly mentioned in the game. As for them being related in other ways, that's just down to your headcanons, but I severely doubt it. This isn't small potatoes. In Royal's third semester, it's revealed to us that if Joker chooses to reject Maruki's reality, it would result in Akechi's life being forfeit, since the only reason he's even there is that Maruki brought him back to life and gave him a fresh start as per Joker's wish. Akechi isn't fazed by this, as he would rather be dead than live under Maruki's thumb. He grows frustrated with Joker's hesitance and calls his own life trivial in this situation. This leads to a list of dialogue options with the top one reading, "This isn't small potatoes." Think about the situation I just laid out. That line seems way too light-hearted for this situation, right? Most players put it down to poor translation from Atlas West, since such a playful idiom for such a serious scene. However, a fan named... hang on, let me check my notes. Uwukechi may have found a deeper meaning to this phrase. There is an old Russian proverb that directly translates to, "Love is not potatoes, one cannot throw it in a window." The accepted translation is, "Love is not a small thing that is easy to get rid of." Uwukechi also talks about when the Russian play Chekhov's My Wife was being translated into English, the translators were confused by the line, "Death is not a potato," which we now know is a reference to the famous proverb. So with that knowledge, if we look at the seemingly light-hearted "this isn't small potatoes," it takes on a much deeper and more profound meaning. We can now see that Joker's bond with Akechi runs deeper than that of friendship. Joker actually loves Akechi, and he's not willing to cast aside Akechi just as easily as Akechi himself is. Whatever kind of love Joker feels for Akechi is entirely up to you, but I think we can all agree that this is definitely the sweetest part of the iceberg. And yeah, that was some English teacher shit right there, wasn't it? Now we're on to the last part of the iceberg, and I just gotta say, you guys are real champs for sticking with me this far into the video. The Abyss. Persona 5 hero in Persona 4 Arena. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax features an original character named Sho Minazuki. For some reason, Sho is coded into the game as P5 hero. This may imply that Atlus could have had plans for him to be the protagonist of Persona 5, but ultimately scrapped the idea. I guess if you look at him, you can get some mild Joker vibes from him. Okumura Time Paradox. The Iceberg calls this the Okumura Time Paradox, but it's not a paradox at all. This is referring to the gap between Akechi killing Shadow Okumura and Okumura's mental shutdown. You see, if you beat the palace in one day, that means there's a 2-week time period between Akechi carrying out the execution and the mental shutdown, seeing as Akechi kills the Shadow right after you defeat the boss. This is definitely an inconsistency on Atlus's part, but it's made to fit in with the gameplay at the minor expense of the story. Like I said, there's nothing paradoxical about this. Haru's sadism. Despite her cute and bubbly appearance, Haru is pretty scary once you give it more thought. There's many pieces of Mementos dialogue that goes along the lines of her saying she loves hearing the shadows scream as she attacks them with her axe. I'm sure that really tells you all you need to know. I mean, no one is gonna seem to be that happy-go-lucky all the time without having a twisted side. Implications of Joker in Smash Ultimate. In Smash Ultimate, Joker can use his full persona powers, which pretty much implies that Smash Bros takes place somewhere in the metaverse. For all we know, Smash could be the mementos of all the fighters' cognitions, or it takes place in a palace belonging to someone like Taboo. It doesn't really matter, but it's fun to think about. Unobtainable PS4 themes. For Persona 5 Royal, Atlus granted codes for new themes to players once they reached certain points of the game. However, no one was ever able to receive the codes, so no one could obtain them. I think they might finally be available, but it sucks that I never got the chance to put the Ryuji theme on my PS4 before I sold it. I have a PS5 now, by the way. Shido is Futaba's dad. The idea of Shido being Futaba's dad is nothing but a theory, but it's a theory I confidently subscribe to. We know it was Shido who got involved in Wakaba's research into cognitive science. We also know, thanks to Akechi's mother and the woman he assaults at the start of the game, that Shido has a habit of sleeping with women, then ghosting them. Another piece of evidence is that Akechi and Futaba both have similar blood types, further pointing towards them being half-siblings. Either way, there's zero confirmation in the story, so this will always remain a speculation, but I'm pretty certain that's true. We can just ignore Futaba's hair color. Loki is an artificial persona. I couldn't really find anything that relates to this, and I didn't get anything from commenters about it in my last video, so I'm still not sure, but I'll take a guess this time. I'm part of the way through the hellhole that is Persona 3 Fez, and I know that Aegis is a robot with a persona, so I sort of assume that it's an artificial one. So I guess this is saying that Loki is the same as that, but I can't come up with any reasons as to why that'd be the case. Kamoshida nude model. There is an unused model of Kamoshida that is nude. I'm just not going to show anything because I'd like this video to not get taken down. Joker is Vincent's son. This is pretty much just a theory since they look alike, but damn, I had a really passionate commenter in my last video when I dared to say that their headcanon has no concrete foundation. Some of you guys need to calm down. Persona 5 Portable. This mainly just relates to speculation on whether or not a portable version of Persona 5 would ever come to the PS Vita. I am responsible for crushing that dream. This is a line from Sumire which was prominent during the Persona 5 Royal trailers. It led people to believe that she would be a new adversary to the Phantom Thieves, with some going as far to say that she would cause Akeshu to side with the Phantom Thieves. Do you see what I mean about people having their expectations way too high for a definitive edition? Anyway, this line turned out to be about Sumire crushing Kasumi's dreams of becoming the gymnastics world champion, so it was pretty different to what people expected. Test_size. Test_size is an unused model found hidden inside the Tatsuya building. Going off of its name and the fact that it's roughly the same height as most models in the game, it was likely just made as a height reference and nothing more. If you wanted to stretch a little, you could say it may have been planned as a female main character, which I wouldn't blame you for as it does sorta look like a feminine Joker. But a lot of anime protagonists look the same, so who knows. Akeshu is canon. Akeshu is the name of the ship between Joker and Akechi. What's weird is that the text for this was heavily obscured in the Iceberg, so it was either a mistake or Okumura got shot was trying to hide this one away since ships are always a controversial topic in these kinds of fandoms. Despite what some people will tell you, there isn't really a canon ship in Persona 5. Calm down for a second. It's all down to what the player chooses, so different people will have different headcanons. But I really can't deny the fact that there is 100% some sexual tension between the two, and let's just think back to the small potatoes thing. So yeah, I'll have to disagree with this one, since there is no canon ship, but it doesn't really matter, and I don't want to hear a mention of Makoto in the comments, okay? P5U.jp. P5U.jp is a domain purchased by Atlas alongside P5D.jp. Obviously, P5D turned out to be Persona 5 Dancing, but many people have been left wondering what P5U is supposed to mean. If I were to guess, P5U probably means Persona 5 Ultimate, which likely could have been a placeholder name for Persona 5 Royal. Hisashi Ushiwata. Hisashi Ushiwata is the center point of an unused Mementos request involving a member of government falsely placing assault charges on his son. I'm not sure if there's something I don't know about this that puts it so far down the iceberg, but it sure was fun to read through. In fact, you should go to the cutting room floor and read through the unused Mementos requests. It's good fun to see what other storylines didn't quite make the cut. Well, that was the definitive Persona 5 Iceberg, fully explained for you. Big thanks again to Glad Okumura Got Shot for putting this all together. The Reddit post will be in the description. And please don't make any more of these, they take it out of me. If you enjoyed this, it'd mean the world to me if you subscribe to my channel. I'm making a push for 200 subs, so any help is appreciated, and you can also check out my other videos too. They're good fun. If you like, you can follow my Twitter through the link in the description. And I think this is where I sign off, because I mean, someone has got to edit all this.